Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I'm going to start off tonight just really quickly. I'm just going to let you know, right before I came on, my camera started malfunctioning, where all of a sudden I would just like disappear. So I'm just going to let you guys know, if that happens, I'm hoping I fixed it. I found a loose connection. I kind of, squeezed the little, because it's a USB connection, so I kind of squeezed the little USB a little bit and put it back in, and it feels like it's doing a lot better. But if that drops off, don't worry. I am aware. I will hopefully get it back. And besides, it doesn't matter anyway, because you guys don't want to look at my ugly face. I mean, I have a face for radio here, folks. I mean, that's literally what's going on. But anyway, I appreciate everyone coming and joining in. Hey, if you haven't followed me on social media, then you haven't noticed that I have been putting out some things. I am looking for new Whiskey Warriors. Of course, this is a brand new year, 2023. I have almost as many followers on Facebook right now on my Facebook page as I do in Rumble, and Rumble is at 458 followers right now. I think I'm at like 455 on Facebook right now, and I am looking for some more subscribers, some more followers. I want to expand the channel. That is my goal for this year, for 2023, is to expand my reach. So do me a favor and just, make sure you get the word out everywhere you can. I appreciate all of that. I appreciate all of my P1s, my Whiskey Warrior P1s, and I appreciate everybody that is out there. Young, old, whatever. I know I have a 12-year-old follower fan. He loves it whenever I mention him. So I'm going to try and mention him as often as I can, because we need young men like him to come up. We need young women also to come up and start taking over this country, and start putting it back on its original path and the right path, the correct path for where it needs to go. And we need young men and women to take on the responsibility of becoming the next generation, the next American first generation here. And I'm going to start it right here on the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. So, all right. A couple of things. For those of you that play the lottery, which I do, unfortunately, I got a story about that coming up. And hey, I also, look, Joe Biden has no freaking clue what's going on. He even said so to a reporter today, apparently. He has no idea what's happening. It was a moment of truth. I don't have a clip because I don't want to listen to the man speak, or mumble, and kind of like, trip over his words and come up with made up stuff like true international pressure. But anyway, I've got some more information on the whole Biden classified docs scandal. And I have an update on a Supreme Court case that dealt with the elections, or that was going to deal with the 2020 election. And unfortunately, I've got some bad news there. But yeah, that's pretty much, that's kind of the show for this evening. That is the show for this evening. And of course, I've got my American Patriots Almanac here all ready and set to go. But before I get to that, let me go ahead and talk about my sponsor / affiliate / whatever you want to call them, the True Grit Roots Network. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN, champions independent artists while paying respect to the pioneers who shaped modern roots music, featuring outlaw country, blues, and rock with a unique twist of urban that is carefully selected and put together, purposely put together We are the radio highway that connects the back roads, highways, and city streets to your favorite dance hall, roadhouse, and juke joint. TGRN provides exclusive, original programming and interviews that are produced and hosted by our own team of DJs, hosts, and personalities. Find us on the web at tgrn.net, to download our app in the App Store and from Google Play. Alternatively, you can find us in the Live 365 catalog of internet digital radio stations and through the Live 365 app as well. You can also play your station on your Amazon Alexa by saying play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Be sure to use the word from in the command. Play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. It'll take her a second to find it, but I guarantee you if she does, she'll pull it up. Live 365 is now on Roku as well. You can play it through your TV. You can find it there. Just go to the Live 365 app and search up TGRN, True Grit Roots Network, and you can play all of our stations through your television as well. Breaking boundaries for authentic roots radio, True Grit Roots Network, TGRN.net, Austin, Texas. And of course, for those who have been a longtime listener, like all of my Whiskey Warrior P1s, you know that I am a part owner of that organization and or that radio station. And you know, my partners and I, we put a lot of pride into it. We launched it a little over a year ago, actually, and it's been going pretty strong. We'd like to add to it and get things going, get some more things going. We've got some great shows, music on the couch, Wednesday Night Juke Joint. We've got Dirty Boots Radio. We have Mighty Mouth Blues. We have Oogie's Sunday Groove. We've got all kinds of great shows. And then, of course, when we don't have... Oh, and I can't forget the Blue Plate Special that they run Monday through Friday at noon, hosted by the different DJs from the different shows and everything. Each DJ kind of has a day or two within that week and plays their select group of music. And that is awesome stuff. We'd like to see that, obviously, to expand and get going further on that. All right. And I thank you, by the way, for checking it out and seeing if that's something that you would appreciate and listen to. I know we have some people internationally that listen on the show, and so are onto the... onto the station. And yes, Bonnie, I did have my ears lowered. If you caught the show last Wednesday, if you caught Wednesday's show, you would have known that I just finally got tired. I had my hair long, but apparently I'm one of those types of people that your hair only grows so long and then it just kind of quits growing and it doesn't go any further. And so I got tired of it from that, and I went ahead and just got it cut off. You can go back to that episode and take a look. I did take my hat off there so you could see the haircut if you really want to. That is entirely up to you. Okay, so tonight I went back to one of my faves for drinking. And tonight in my glass is the Four Roses Single Barrel Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And as you can see, I am down to maybe one more glass, maybe 1.5. I don't know. It depends on how active I actually want to be with it. But tonight, that is what I'm drinking. I step back to it. I also have another bottle that I got for Christmas. That is the, let's see, this is the single barrel. I did get a small batch bottle as well, so I'm not running low on four roses. Even though this bottle is going to go out, I still have another bottle in the repertoire. So anyway, good stuff. It's got a nice kick to it, and has a little bit of a bite, kind of a spicy bite at the end. So anyway, you have to give it a try. They've got a bunch of different options for the Four Roses and that kind of stuff. So anyway, All right, so let's get and move on to our Saturday night segment, of course, known as On This Day in American History. And, of course, we take every Saturday, I won't say every Saturday, but most Saturdays, the majority of them, I go ahead and read from this absolutely fabulous book called The American Patriots Almanac. It is a thick book filled with a daily, and I do mean daily, a daily entry for everything in terms of America. This is all American, all about America. It has several different stories. I picked the story of the day for the Saturday that I'm on, but it also is chock full of other information, like describing all of the flags throughout the Revolutionary War and everything, and also talks about a whole bunch of other things about the states, and has just filled with facts and information. You can get this anywhere books are sold. It's by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. And you can pick it up. They have it listed on the back for about $20. I'm sure you can get it like around 20, 25 maybe. But the backside says it's about $20. Great book. If you have an opportunity to pick it up, you should do so. And you can even follow along while I read. So tonight is January 14th. We had Friday the 13th. Did anybody notice that? Friday the 13th. Yesterday, I kind of got a little freaked because in my day job, I had to do a network change, and I realized that I scheduled it for Friday the 13th. I'm not superstitious, but yeah, anyway, so there we go. All right. So for today on January 14th, we are looking at a prayer at Valley Forge. During the long winter of 1777 to 1778, when the Patriot Army camped at Valley Forge, George Washington shared the hardships suffered by his men. He spent much of his time rounding up food, begging the Continental Congress for supplies, and bolstering the troops' spirits. His presence kept the army from disintegrating. Tradition holds that one cold day, Isaac Potts, a Quaker farmer who had lived near Valley Forge, was walking through the woods when he heard a low, solemn voice. Stealing quietly in its direction, he found a riderless horse tied to a sapling. The farmer crept nearer and through the trees saw a lone man on his knees in the snow. It was General Washington. Tears marked his face as he bowed his head and asked God to look after his men. At home that evening, the farmer told his wife of the encounter. "All will be well, Martha," he said. "If there is anyone the Lord will listen to, it is this brave man. I have seen General Washington on his knees. Our independence is certain." And that is today's On This Day in American History, once again from The American Patriots Almanac. You know, I should go and take a look and see if they've got a new version out. Let me see. When is this? I'm not sure when this was printed. It looks like the original package was in 2013. I'll have to look and see if maybe there's a new updated version, maybe something that was revised or whatever. In case you didn't know, I kind of like books. I like books. I like to read books. I have a hard time reading things on like the Kindles and stuff, even though I do have one of those running around here somewhere that has books on it. But I'm more of a, hold it in my hand, paper kind of guy. It looks like Day has already seen. They do have an updated version, so I guess I'm going to have to get that one. All right. Well, now, okay, what's it? I'm picking up my daughter. So Bam says, I'm picking up my daughter from work, so she will be stuck in the car listening to conservative truth. Oh, yes. Stuck in the car listening to me. Oh my gosh, that's going to be a kick in the pants. You're going to have to let us know, Pam, what happens if she doesn't jump out first. Oh gosh, that's funny. Oh my goodness. Okay, so who put in? I mean, let's just if we were in front of everybody, I would say show of hands. But since I'm not, just let me know in the chat who's watching right now. Can you let me know in the chat? Went out and bought a Mega Millions lottery ticket specifically for last night's drawing. Okay, I don't know. I honestly don't know how many people did, but I can tell you can always tell by how many people bought tickets, by how much it goes up every single time. And, I don't know if I necessarily would call myself a gambler per se. But at the same time, when you have some of these things and the logic side of my brain kicks in and says, you do realize you have a much better chance of getting struck by lightning at least once, if not twice, than you actually have of winning the jackpot. Okay. And then there's the other side of my brain that says, yeah, but what if? Well, so, I don't play it all the time, but I do play it. It's one thing that I will have to say that I do is I do get a lottery ticket every once in a while. And the way that I look at it, honestly, is that if I'm going to get my entertainment and spend my money on entertainment, I might as well just entertain myself. And to me, it's like $1 or $2, whatever it is. I mean, I don't spend, $15,000, $20,000 on it or whatever. I mean, I've known some people who have gotten, serious amounts of money and thrown serious amounts of money at lotteries. But the thing about it is that I look at it this way. If I just get even just at like $1 worth of dreams, it's worth it to me. Because, and especially in today's day and age, because of the fact that, I can sit on my butt in front of the television or go to a movie. I don't go to movies that much, but sitting on my butt in front of the television for an hour, watching some woke freaking leftist Hollywood type of movie is not where I want to spend my time and where I want to spend my money. And so being able to take a little bit and put it up in here, just take a little bit and then think about it. Think about, wow, what would I do with that kind of money? What is something that I would do? And I've been thinking a lot here recently, especially because of these high jackpots. If these guys, if I were to win something like this, I would want to do something spectacular with it. Okay. And while I'm not going to go through all of my choices, because obviously a lot depends on the amount that would be won, the amount that I would get from it, how much in taxes would have to be taken away and stuff like that. And I do have some calculations that I already have sort of figured out. And I have some plans that are pretty much in my mind. But one thing that I definitely would not do is I would not go and spend it all. I don't think I would go and spend it all on a bunch of stuff. Okay? Because I'm pretty satisfied with where I'm at. There might be some things, that I spend it on, but it wouldn't be a large amount of stuff. I would feel more like what I want to try and do with that money is I would want to take some of it and support charities that I am really focused on. For an example, I already know that if I were to win a large enough jackpot, I would be taking a trip to Florida specifically to give a check to Mark K for his K's Kids charity. I guarantee you that much. Okay, I would go and give a check to the K's Kids charity because of the fact that they do such a wonderful job with the kids. They brighten up those kids' lives. These kids are having, mostly medical issues and things like that. And they every single one that he has brought in the time that I've been a Mark K fan, every single time that I have seen these kids come in, they are always extremely respectful. They are always extremely nice. They are very well-mannered. They are the epitome of where I would want to go and where I would want my kids to be. And so, that kind of a situation, I think, would be a very good charity for me. Plus, the fact that they are very efficient with their money definitely helps things out. Now, I talk about them. I've talked about them on the show before, and, normally they don't do fundraising and stuff now, but I'm going to tell you that as far as I'm concerned, you can go to their kskids.com and you can donate all throughout the year. And I think that would be absolutely wonderful to do, just to help these kids out. And then, of course, they have their two big events, one in July, Christmas in July, and then they have the Ho Ho Hold'em tournament and the 12 Days of Christmas in December. Now, that being said, and again, just because I've said it before, and I'll say it again as well, is that the K's Kids charity does 90 cents out of every dollar. Basically 90% of the money that's raised goes directly to the kids. How they keep their operating costs low, I have no idea, but that is the way a charity should function. You go to some of these charities that they have, large percentages that go to overhead and things like that. Sounds to me like that's just incredibly I don't even know what to say, because to me, it's like the whole focus should be to keep costs down so that you put more money to the kids. And that's the way it should work. That being said, another charity that runs along the same veins is Folds of Honor. Now, Folds of Honor is a charity that I think you should look into also. And that is a charity that basically what they do is they give things like scholarships and grants to the children of deceased service members. So after the service member dies, they try to help with the service members' kids to get them off into school or college, trade school, whatever it is that they have. And that's a big thing by Dan Bongino, but they also reportedly run about a 90-10 split. Okay. So those are two charities that I think if I were to win a large amount of money, that I would definitely look into and definitely support for absolutely certain, from that. And I'm noticing over here in the chat, in the Rumble chat in particular, I've got to say hello to Z. Hello, Z. Welcome to the program. I appreciate you listening. I know you might be might be a bit of a captive audience, but I appreciate you listening. And hey, maybe you'll learn something here. Hopefully, I will entertain as well as instruct as well. So welcome, Z. Thank you for listening. Okay. So the sad part about this whole thing is, and let me go ahead and show this to you, because unfortunately I woke up this morning, even though I had bought a ticket, I woke up this morning and found out that one single winner of the Mega Millions, 1.35 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B, $1 billion. A single winner showed up in Maine. So Maine apparently had the winning ticket. So somebody over in Maine, and I know I have a lot of listeners that are on the East Coast. If you happen to live in Maine, man, better check your tickets if you haven't already, because you could be the $1.35 billion winner. So All right. And, I mean, again, I don't do this on a regular basis. I mean, yes, I play occasionally, but I don't do it on a regular basis all the time. To be honest, I play it when the jackpots get big, and it's like I said, it's like $1 or $2 worth of dreams. It's a way that I spend my money. I dream about all the different things that I would want to do, the wonderful things. I even said in the Mark K chat, at one point, I even said that if I were to win this big one, I would actually run for president of the United States in 2024. And apparently that is not where God wants me to be. Because he didn't give me the winning ticket. Oh, goodness. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's just, that's funny. I'm just kind of in a funny mood. But what is not funny, is the fact that Joe Biden seems to have a problem remembering where he put all of his classified documents when he was vice president, because not only did they find them at University of Pennsylvania, but they also found them in his home, in the garage, and now we have this article that popped up that says that they have found 5 more classified documents found in his home. Now, apparently they found additional pages of classified documentation or classified information at his Delaware home this week. The White House also said, bringing the tally apparently to 6 pages uncovered this week. Now, why are they talking about 6 pages or 10 pages there, or, whatever? The fact of the matter is, he took classified information, okay, just like Donald Trump. And as I said in my last show on Wednesday, there is a big, major difference between Joe Biden having it in his possession and Donald Trump having it in his possession. And the reason being is because of the fact that Donald Trump, being president of the United States, being the 45th president, at the time that he acquired that information, he exclusively and all alone had the ability to declassify it. Now, everybody's talking, you listen to all these people, they're all talking about, well, there should be a special process that it has to go to. No. Literally, Donald Trump can look at a piece of paper and say, this is declassified, and walk out of the Oval Office with it. That's the process. The man, as president, had the power to declassify whatever documents that he deemed necessary. And so now Biden has that same power. Okay. But the problem is that Biden did not have that power as the vice president, when and where these documents were obtained. And so the big question that everybody is going to be asking, of course, is, first of all, where did he get these documents? Some of them were marked top secret, and some of them were marked top secret SCI, which is specially compartmentalized information. I think I did that right. But a TSSCI document cannot be pulled out of and must not be removed from a facility that is designed specifically for housing and viewing those kinds of documents. That is the top level of our classified documentation level, is TSSCI. And they have specific facilities that are made to prevent eavesdropping, cameras, cell phones, all kinds of stuff. There's like all kinds of rules around these documents, and they have them specifically for your eyes only, or for particular people only. You have to be cleared in order to get in there. You have to have top secret clearance. There's just so many things about this. So one of the big questions that everybody has to ask is, how did these TSSCI documents get taken out of these secure facilities? How did they get removed? And then you have to ask yourself, why in the heck does Joe Biden have them? And he has them in places that are not secure. Now, supposedly the garage where his Corvette was stored, where they found the second set of documents, was actually at one point, it was reported that Hunter Biden claimed that house as his. That it wasn't even Joe's house, that it very well could have been in Hunter Biden's name. The house itself. Now, we already know, too, by one of the articles, that that the documents that were stored in the garage next to Biden's Corvette were at least accessed by Hunter Biden himself, because according to old Joe, Hunter Biden went and actually did something to the engine on that Corvette. Okay. So, yeah, that's, I mean, I can't understand this. I really just, now, don't get me wrong. Every single president has taken documents home. Every single president has had issues with the National Archives over information and documentation that they have removed from the Oval Office when they left. It's very famously known. Bill Clinton had tapes in his sock drawer. Obama still has something like 55,000 docs that are in some storage facility close to where he lives in Martha's Vineyard. So every single president, I think, has had, and it may not even be just presidents, it could be anybody. I mean, they've all had issues like this. But the fact of the matter is that for the first time in history, they actually went to and raided Donald Trump's house because he supposedly, allegedly, was not responding or cooperating. Now, we've got things on both sides with this, but Joe Biden very famously called out Donald Trump and said that Donald Trump was irresponsible for doing this. And, you know, again, I go back to the whole point, which this is going to be the big thing. If they decide to bring Donald Trump up on charges on this, which I'm going to be honest with you, I think now that this is coming out, I think they're actually less and less likely to bring charges against Donald Trump. But the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump could just say, hey, I declassified all that stuff. And that's it. There's nothing else to it. He did it. It's over. And it's done. Where Biden does not have that leg to stand on because he was VP at the time that those documents were removed from their connection. And yes, I'm getting beaten up by you guys. I get it. Yes, I know he was only a VP. He wasn't the president. I get it. I've been saying that all along. He cannot have those documents. Legally, he cannot have those documents. Those documents are protected information, and the only person who should have had them or should have been able to have them was the president, or is the president, who should be able to do it. Okay. Now, that being said, as I pointed out, that his stash of classified docs was marked top secret. Again, TSSCI. Now, keep in mind too that we saw some of the classified covers that the FBI put out with the FBI raid. Sorry. Got a little stuck there. But with the FBI raid, they had that very famous picture of all of those covers that they put out to make it look like Joe Biden, or not Joe Biden, but Donald Trump had all of these things. And they never really showed the documents, or they haven't even really gone into detail to describe exactly what's going on. All they kept saying was, oh, well, he has things like the nuclear codes. Well, he didn't have the nuclear codes. If he had the nuclear codes, I'm sure that they would have tried to bury him with it. But the fact of the matter is that all they really had were covers. That was it. They didn't really have reportedly, they didn't really have any documents. Now, they kept saying they had 300 of these things. But yeah. And again, that's Donald Trump. And so you'll hear some of these pundits say, well, the sheer number of documents doesn't matter. In the eyes of the law, all it takes is one. That's it. One document. And we have already gone past that with Joe Biden. Now, I don't know if anybody saw it, but Joe walked up to, when he was leaving the White House for something, don't know what, but he walked up to the press corps, and the press corps said, asked him about it. And he reportedly, or allegedly, I should say, stated to the reporters, I don't know what the hell's going on. In a moment of clarity, he actually said that he does not know what's going on. Well, I actually think that applies to his entire presidency. But that being said, again, he was the vice president. He is not supposed to have classified documentation. He can't take it out of its, he doesn't have those kinds of authorizations. The president is the only one who can declassify stuff. And so, yeah, this is just, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so what does the Biden admin do with this? Well, the first thing that they do is obviously they've got to blame somebody else. So who do they blame? Well, according to Breitbart, there's a report out that basically says that the Biden admin officials blame the National Archives for Joe Biden's classified document scandal. This is typical Democrat behavior. If you cannot, weasel your way out of it, blame somebody else. There is no personal responsibility when it comes to Democrats, liberals, leftists. They don't want personal responsibility. They want somebody else to take the blame for it. And so I'm actually kind of surprised it took them this long to say something about this, but apparently they are now trying to blame the National Archives for Joe Biden's document scandal, which is completely wrong, because the original story was that for the University of Pennsylvania office scenario was that the lawyers were there helping Joe Biden close down his office there. And that's when they discovered the first set of documents, the first 10. So yeah. Oh, okay. Amy, I'll have to get you toward the end of the show. I'll have to do what I'm going to do. So, anyway, so yeah, I mean, Biden is in some serious hot water. He is in some serious hot water. And I've got a couple of opinion pieces here. One of them kind of asks the question, which I think everybody should be asking, which is essentially this piece from Town Hall written by Josh Hammer yesterday. And he comes out with, is the deep state coming after Joe Biden? Now, Dan Bongino kind of made an allusion to this. And one thing that I don't think that everybody really, well, maybe maybe you don't, but when you have the Democrats, the liberals, the leftists, one of the things that they do is they tend to use you to the point that you are no longer useful, and then they toss you away. And this is part of what they do with their whole ideas about identity politics and stuff. As long as you can fit within certain boxes and you're useful in that sense, they're going to go ahead and use you up until the point that you are no longer useful anymore, and then they toss you aside. See, they don't really care about Joe Biden. And in fact, up until the point they had their sights, believe it or not, excuse me for a second, they had their sights on Kamala Harris being the first woman president of the United States. But one of the suggestions that was made was that when Tulsi Gabbard on the debate stage in that first debate totally ripped Kamala Harris up one wall and down the other and tore up everything, okay, when it comes to regards to Kamala Harris, that they quickly shifted and found the other candidate that they decided would be the better one. Now, they had already destroyed Bernie. If you recall, back in 2016, they had destroyed Bernie in order to get Hillary Clinton in to go up against Donald Trump. And so they were pushing, honestly, and this is my supposition, but I've had a couple other people, well-known people, have kind of floated this as well. But they have been pushing and pushing and pushing. They got their first African-American president in Obama. They got him. And so now they're looking to break the next barrier, which is to get a female president. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a woman president, okay? But again, it has to be the right woman. It has to be a qualified individual who is America first, in my opinion. You know, everything else, Hillary did not fit that bill. And so she got trounced, even though they swore up and down that they were going to get her in. Okay. She ended up getting trounced. And so now what we have here is Joe Biden got brought in, and let's face it, he sat for a majority of the campaign trail in his freaking basement. And we all know that they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. There's several places throughout the main states, Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, that were key states. And there's a lot of questionable crap that happened there. Now, whether or not it's true or not, I don't know, but it's questionable crap that happened in those states when it came to the voting. And so they ended up getting Joe Biden in. Well, now that they have him in and he is doing absolutely horribly, they have decided that it's time, and especially because he keeps talking about running again, because in his mind, he actually believes that, number one, he's doing a great job. I don't know who's blowing that smoke up his rear end, but they are trying to make sure potentially that Joe Biden doesn't run in 2024. They're going to have to come up with somebody who is a good alternative. And I can tell you right now, have you noticed, though, that Kamala Harris hasn't really been in the spotlight recently? She really hasn't come out and done anything recently. And the reason being, I think, is because she was having so many problems with all of her gaffes and her speeches. And for a woman who spent a lot of time in public service and being in front of cameras and stuff, as, you know, being a prosecutor, she really has a hard time putting together coherent thoughts, just about as bad as Joe Biden is. But old Joe is worn out his welcome. He's worn out his usefulness. And there is a possibility that now the bureaucrats are saying, you know what, we're done with him. And there is some suggestion, okay, that some of these things may have been known about, but recently discovered. And rather than trying to cover them up, they actually have brought them forward on purpose to try and make problems for Joe Biden. I don't know. I don't know for sure if that's the case. And right now, I think we're going to be learning a little bit more. But we also need to understand that they are focused on a couple of other people. I mean, they have Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris really is sort of a dud. They have Pete Buttigieg, who they like for whatever reason. The Democrats really like. I mean, he checks the homosexual box for them, for the identity politics kind of scenario. So he checks that. Unfortunately, he is still a white guy, though, which is something that they don't really care for. But you also have up-and-comer who has made some interesting moves here in the last year. You have up-and-comer Gavin Newsom out in California, because Lord knows that the Democrats want to California America. Think about that for a minute. They want to take the pattern of California and they want to make it what America does. And believe me, that is not something that we want to do at all. Kamala Harris, I think, is damaged goods. So I don't know if she would, I mean, even though she checks 2 of the boxes in terms of their identity politics ideas. But again, I don't really see, I mean, they tried even with, Pocahontas. I can't even think of her freaking name now. Elizabeth Warren. They tried with Elizabeth Warren, and she hasn't really done very well, especially in the fact that she is not Native American, even though, and she used that as a crutch to get her through some of her university days and things like that. She used that as a huge crutch. Everybody knows she did. She's only like 1 in 10/24 or whatever it is. So anyway, the Democrat Party is in some huge turmoil. And so I think some of this might be, in terms of these documents, might be trying to send a signal to Joe Biden that, hey, you need to shut up. You need to just finish your term and you need to get out of the way and let somebody else come in. So that's potentially the deal. But Josh Hammer kind of brought that up in terms of his opinion column, where he talks about the deep state possibly coming after Joe Biden to essentially get him out of the way for the next person, whoever that ends up being. And yes, they do like Hakeem Jeffries in the House. They do like him. And by the way, I mean, I've listened to him speak a little bit, and I'm a little leery. He does not seem to be the best speaker either. And that's who 3 Chevy, that's who you're talking about, is Hakeem Jeffries. And he does not seem to be a huge eloquent speaker either. So I'm just not sure why they want him, to be honest with you, but okay. I mean, whatever. Like, again, he checks all the boxes. It's pretty evident that the administration determines capabilities based off of whether or not they check the correct boxes. And Hakeem Jeffries has some very strange thought processes. He's got some serious baggage and everything else. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, this seems to be a bit of a shakeup. We'll kind of have to see what's going on, but in terms of what's happening. But this does bring up an interesting thought process in terms of whether or not Joe might be being told that he needs to go. Okay. So now the big question happens to be, well, you know, they were stomping the ground. They were, banging their drums. They were doing all kinds of things. What, when it came to Trump and his classified documents? So where are they going to go with this? And there's a couple of places, or a couple of articles that I included in the show notes. First one here is kind of an opinion piece by David Hansani, Hansany. Anyway, and so David kind of brings out the fact that Joe Biden is essentially out of excuses. He can't excuse away the fact that he has had these documents in literally unsecured locations. I mean, let's be honest with you. Anybody that had access to that garage could have had access to those documents. And same thing goes for like the office at the University of Pennsylvania. The same thing goes with inside of his home. Unless they are in a locked cabinet somewhere, which again, the whole closet down in Mar-a-Lago with 2 locks on there, not just one, but 2. One of them installed by the Secret Service after the FBI visited the first time and said, hey, you should probably put a second lock on that door. The Secret Service went ahead and installed it on that door, and they made 2 locks. And then, of course, you have the Secret Service itself running around Mar-a-Lago. So honestly, I don't know how how, Donald Trump's classified documents, which weren't probably classified. I mean, nobody really knows except for him, except for Trump, as to whether or not he declassified them or not. But the fact of the matter is, just the documents themselves were much more secure in Mar-a-Lago than any of the documents that have popped up under Joe Biden. But Joe Biden doesn't have any excuses left. And the reason being is, again, because of the fact that he's the vice president. He has, issues in terms of who had access to the documentation, so on and so forth. So there's a good piece in here. It's an opinion piece, again, like I said, about the documents, and that they were found in, office settings rather than just lying around. But again, the security is the big question. How secure were those documents? How were those, how secure were those areas? Could anybody just walk in and gain access to them? And we already know, like I said, Hunter Biden likely had access to the garage because he had access to the Corvette at some point, by Joe's own admission. But Alan Dershowitz, now I don't know if anybody really knows who Alan Dershowitz is, but Alan Dershowitz is a lawyer, and he has been he's I'm trying to think here. Let's see where. He is now a professor emeritus at Harvard Law. And he's also, I know that he's worked in the Justice Department before. I know he was a counselor for one of the presidents. I don't remember who, but he basically brought up to the Washington Examiner, according to the Washington Examiner, that he brought up the idea that Dershowitz says there's no prosecution likely as the Biden and Trump docs neutralize each other. Now, as I've said on this program a couple of different times, and I have said it, the Presidential Records Act, which is essentially the act that they are attempting to get Trump on in particular, is an administrative law. Now, there's a difference between an administrative law and a criminal law. Criminal law means you've actually broken something that requires, potential incarceration, restitution, something along those lines. And Buddy also popped up and said that he represented President Trump during the impeachment trial. That's where I remember him from. Thank you for that, Buddy, by the way. So Dershowitz is now basically saying that because Biden had these documents show up, that Trump will likely not get prosecuted. But of course, that also means that Biden won't get prosecuted either. I am not entirely within that camp. I actually think Biden has more of a chance of getting prosecuted than Trump does, because of the fact that, again, I go back to the whole point. Trump had the ability to declassify the documents. Biden did not. So Biden should not, period, have any documentation, any classified documentation in his possession during that period of time. Now, he could do it now, because he is the president. He has that ability. But back then, prior to 2017, when he left office, he did not have the ability to declassify documents. So yeah, this is, I don't quite agree with Alan Dershowitz, but he's basically saying that the DOJ is likely going to drop the charges against Trump. And the reason being, of course, is because of the fact that they don't want to deal with Biden. They don't want to deal with Biden. So, yeah, I mean, this is just, he basically stated here that the document haul and those found during the FBI raid at Mar-a-Lago resort last August will neutralize each other. This will make it difficult for the Justice Department to make anything stick. Well, definitely on Trump. but not so much on Biden, to be honest. And he basically, and Dershowitz said in an interview Friday evening with the National Desk, he says, the end result here, by the way, will be a tie. Each of these allegations neutralizes the other. I don't agree, Alan. I really don't. And he goes on to say, it means it's impossible that Donald Trump will ever be prosecuted for his mishandling of classified information at Mar-a-Lago. And obviously, the special prosecutor will not prosecute President Biden, he added. Well, the reason why they wouldn't prosecute President Biden is because the DOJ is in the Democrat pocket. We already know that. We know that in particular because of Merrick, or as Mark Levin calls him, meritless Garland, is definitely not going to, he is a partisan hack. Let's just put it that way. He's a partisan hack. So, anyway, again, you know, we're dealing with a very large situation. This is, I think these are worse than Watergate. I think we have a very, very corrupt president. That guy right there sitting in the Oval Office. He's been compromised. He obviously has some very big security leaks and security problems. He has cognitive issues, and I don't see why he has not, other than the government protecting him, why he has not been impeached. I can guarantee you that if anybody was in that particular position at this time, who was a Republican, they would have been impeached and thrown out already. Okay. All right. Now let me just take a breath. Just a second. Whew. It's a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about here. All right. And, you know, again, I'll be honest with you. There for a long time, I'm going to digress here for just a second. There was a long time that I actually believed in the fact that the government itself, you know, for the most part, had our best interest at heart. And the more that we are finding out about the people in government, and it's not just the elected representatives, although they have their own problems and their own quirks, it's also the bureaucrats. And what's happened here in my particular case, in my viewpoint, is that we've gone away from the basic tenets of American values: freedom, liberty, individualism, individual freedom, individual liberty to follow what you want, to do within the law, what you need to do in order to satisfy your life in the pursuit of happiness. It's all of these things that created this Constitution, and not this particular one, but what's written inside here. You know, the Constitution of the United States. It was the whole idea of the formation of this country, and we've walked away from those values within our society today. And we've gone away from it. We've stepped away from all of this, and this is really the culture war problem that we have. And the fact that, you know, we have people who are outside of our culture that are attempting to undermine this beacon of freedom for totalitarianism, honestly. And so, you know, I'm really, really frustrated and upset because I grew up with the idea that you were supposed to trust your government. Can't say that anymore. Definitely can't say it about the FBI. And so this period of time, honestly, it's causing, at least in my life, it's causing a bit of angst. Definitely some anxiousness. And I just can't believe that we have a portion, even just a small portion, but a portion of the population that have stepped away from the whole concepts and values and principles that built this country. And this, I'll admit, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this now, why I'm talking about this now on this channel, on this frequency. What am I saying? I'm not on the radio. But anyway, the point being is that this is part of my drive for doing this, is to re-educate and to bring some of the younger folks along to realize that this country is a great country. For all of her faults, we still have a good amount of people who ultimately are good. They want to have good. They want to have people, grow up and enjoy the freedoms that we have here in this country that the rest of the world literally doesn't have. And so this is part of the reason why I have this channel. And I'm going to keep talking for as long as I have people listening, hopefully learning. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep talking about how great America actually is. Yes, we've had our black eyes, but so does everybody. But overall, this country is the greatest country this earth has ever seen. And even with all of her faults, she is still absolutely fantastic. All right. So let me catch you up on a few other articles that I have here. So I don't know if anybody remembers, I kind of brought this up. There was a writ of certiorari. I believe it's episode 158 that I talked about this. There was a gentleman, and it's actually two brothers, even though one brother is the only one that's actually on the case, or on the filing, out of Utah. And the gentleman's name is Brunson. I think it's Rayland Brunson. And this gentleman brought this case. He filed a writ of certiorari, which basically was a request for the Supreme Court to, because of the fact that the Congress failed to investigate and failed to look into the issues of the 2020 election, that he was asking for the Supreme Court to step in and essentially, either make Congress do it or, as an alternative, remove Joe Biden and put in Donald Trump. Now, prior to the Christmas break, prior to our time off, and I told you back when I talked about it, that I really wasn't sure that it was going to go anywhere. Well, they finally have given a response back. They did initially talk about, let's ask some questions, and maybe, it's possible they were actually giving it some consideration. But the reality of it is that they just recently here on the 9th is when this is reported, that they actually have declined to hear that case. Now, I said it before and I'll say it again. It's it was a long shot. I mean, let's be honest. It was a complete long shot. I think we're a little far down the road, and I don't think that the Supreme Court is really going to be interested in trying to overturn something that is likely going to change in another year, or actually two, because we're going to be at the end of 2024. But realistically, on Monday, they declined to hear the long shot case challenging the 2020 election results and demanding the removal of nearly 400 federal officials. Now, lower courts had previously dismissed the case brought by Rayland, Raland, Brunson, who represented himself, for lack of jurisdiction, but Brunson appealed to the Supreme Court justices, and demanded the removal of President Biden, Vice President Harris, former Vice President Mike Pence, and so on and so forth. Hundreds of lawmakers that did not object. Now, that garnered the attention that that it would happen. It garnered the attention of a lot of people, especially those who put a lot of faith in the fact that that would go someplace. I'm a little more of a realist in that sense, and I'm kind of like, However, that being said, the justices considered whether to hear the case in closed-door conference, and 4 justices were needed for the case to move forward. But the Supreme Court ultimately decided not to do so in an order made public on Monday, which of course came as a surprise after the federal government actually waived its right to file a response to the justices. Now, the case honestly is not quite done yet, and I'll explain why. Because apparently there is a right to the ability for a petition for reconsideration. And Brunson's brother, who has actually talked about this a little bit, not only in the news, but has mentioned things on Facebook and stuff like that and social media outlets. But he basically says that the petition was denied. We will now make our next move, a petition for reconsideration. Hang in there, everyone. And that's what he wrote on Facebook following the decision. Now, again, I think we're a little far gone for trying to remove Joe Biden from office. And even if we did, let's be real, the damage that he has caused already is it's over with. I mean, we're already in it. There's not much that we're going to be able to do to reverse this without having a full Congress that is an America First focused Congress and the executive branch in the hands of America First candidates to try and reverse this. But the fact of the matter is that at least it was thrown up there, and we do have it on record. And we have it as a historical event that happened. Now, what kind of historical event that it ends up becoming over time, we're not going to know. But the thing about it is that, the Supreme Court of the United States traditionally has sort of stayed out of things. It's just, they've kind of stayed out of stuff that doesn't really fall within their purview, let's say. The reason why they did it in, I believe it was 2000 with the hanging chads and everything else was because of the fact that we were in a very bad situation where it came to the choice of president. It came down to essentially I almost want to say it's like a 50-50 split. They had to step in there. In this particular case, they don't have to, because Joe Biden's already been inaugurated. He's already been put in the Oval Office. It's pretty much already a done deal. And, Donald Trump stepped away, said, okay, I'm done. I get it. I'm no longer in the Oval Office, and he peacefully left. And so I think the Supreme Court would be a little less likely to take up the case, because they wouldn't want to essentially upset the apple cart after the apple cart has already gone down the road past the bumpy spots, per se. Okay. So, I think personally that we need to focus more on getting things straight within the states. And I think that making sure that our state representatives, that we vote people in at the state level that are America First candidates and understand our federalist system of government, how the states have more power than the federal government does. Ron DeSantis is a great example of that. He is demonstrating by every single move that he makes that the federalist system is alive and well within our country. And that, I think, is where the fight really needs to be. We need to have governors and state legislatures start to stand up to these people. And then, of course, we also need to work on the federal level as well. But the fact of the matter is that we need to have some strong conservative constitutionalist candidates. We need to find these people. We need to get them into office, and we need to help them and show them that the people want to be governed in the way that our founding documents meant to be governed. We need to also, and Buddy brings it up because, again, I've said this on the show before. I'm going to say it again. I believe that while the First Amendment is great, the Second Amendment is great. While all of the other amendments, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Third, all the amendments are great. I do believe that the 10th Amendment and even the 9th Amendment to a limited extent have the best ability to rein in the federal government. And the 10th Amendment in particular clearly states that if it does not exist within the Constitution as a specified purview of the federal government, nor prohibited by the Constitution to the states, that the states themselves and the people hold the power. And we really need to educate people on what that 10th Amendment really means and start utilizing it more often. We need to push that. Okay, we need to push it. We need to educate people. We need to get young people, such as Z, such as my other 12-year-old young man. We need to get young people to study the Constitution, study the history, the founding of our government, the real history. Not the watered down history, not the fake history of the 1619 Project, but the real history and the real reasons why this country was founded the way that it was. And that's what we need. We need to educate. And that's why I support the Institute on the Constitution, because they are literally trying to educate people on the Constitution and what it really means and how our founding documents came to be and the thought processes that went into them. And so I'm imploring any young person out there, please learn about our government, that the right of our government, or the purpose of our government, is to secure our God-given rights, to secure the people's rights. That's what government is supposed to be. That's what government should be, not to take our rights away, because they can't. All right. One other article here, kind of got off on a tangent. No surprise. But one other article here that we've got is the Pentagon is apparently exploring back pay for the troops kicked out over the COVID vaccine mandate. Now, if you remember last episode, I was telling you the Pentagon finally lifted the COVID vaccine mandate. Well, now apparently the Pentagon is now looking at exploring back pay for those troops. And originally, when I discussed this on Wednesday, they were talking about, that they were going to those people who had gotten kicked out and gotten an other than honorable discharge, and they were allowing those folks to reapply and get either an honorable discharge or a general discharge, upgrading them to essentially something so that they wouldn't be penalized in later life about it. Well, now they're actually looking at potentially paying for these people, for the troops that got kicked out. And this is a great thing. I mean, this is only right. It's only correct to do this. Honestly, to be forced to do an experimental vaccine, or an experimental drug, period, is enough. And we can't even call it a vaccine anymore because it's not really a vaccine, but according to the original definition. But the point is that they are looking at doing this. I hope they do. I think this is a good use of government money and taxpayer money. And that's not just because I'm a former service member myself, but it's just right. It's just correct. Okay. One other note on COVID and the vaccines. I don't know if you caught this article, but this article, apparently the CDC put out a safety warning about the COVID bivalent booster, the updated booster. And apparently the CDC just put out a safety warning about the Pfizer booster. And it appears that the Pfizer booster may be causing strokes. Oh my gosh. The CDC is actually finally coming around and doing their actual job. I cannot believe this. After two and a half years of just marching and towing the company line for the vaccine manufacturers, they've now come out and said that, let's see, what does it say here? The Center for Disease Control said that a preliminary COVID vaccine safety signal has been identified, and it is investigating whether or not bivalent Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine creates an increased risk of ischemic stroke in people 65 and older. In the statement, the CDC says the preliminary signal hasn't been identified with the bivalent Moderna vaccine. So, yeah, safety signals apparently do not cause or do not indicate proof that they're causing a problem, but they are evidence that there is a possible correlation between the events and the vaccine. It says it's interesting to note that the events in question are ischemic strokes. Ischemic strokes are caused by a loss of blood flow to parts of the brain. So they are a vascular phenomenon, suggesting that ischemic events could clearly be happening in other parts of the body. So, like, for an example, in the heart. Heart attacks are ischemic in nature, which a blockage in an artery causes damage or death by preventing the perfusion of the heart with oxygen. I wonder where this is going. Now, this again, and the Outlaw Dogs brought this up. What about the people who are dropping from heart attacks? Well, heart attacks, they just said heart attacks are ischemic in nature, meaning that the blocked artery causes damage and death by preventing the perfusion of the heart with oxygen. So, this is quite interesting. And, I've said this on the program. I mean, look, again, back when this first came out, and I'm not talking about the vaccine, I'm talking about COVID. Back when COVID first came out, we did not know what we were dealing with. And we stepped forward with a whole bunch of measures that were believed at one point would have prevented a lot of deaths. The problem that we had was after about 3 or 4 or 5 months, or even 6 months, we should have been studying the data and realizing that there are several other places that we could have been putting our efforts. But instead of doing that, the medical community and the medical experts doubled down on things and made things even worse and just ignored the other side of the science that was questioning all of this. And what was even worse that we now know is that Twitter jumped on board and was suppressing dissenting opinions about this. So, I'm going to be honest with you, to have this come out. I mean, while I applaud the CDC for doing this, it's too little too late. You've already compromised your integrity and our confidence in your ability to identify these things. I'm sorry. It's too little too late. Now, that being said, they still should do this. They should keep doing this. They should be bringing out all of those things that we were questioning before. And, again, if you were in a risk group And the vaccine was available. You know, Dan Bongino did it. He took it. He's now looking and saying that, you know, he wishes that he didn't do it. You know, I can tell you my daughters, because she had one of the risk factors, my daughter's doctor was pushing it, and I actually pushed back. I said, I want to see all of the data. I want to see where you're telling me that she is going to have a much better chance with the vaccine than she would with COVID directly. And that was essentially my fight about it. And thankfully she didn't get vaccinated. And so I'm not really all that concerned at this moment in terms of, you know, COVID itself or anything else. But again, like I said, my mother got vaccinated, and I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all, because she was in the highest risk group in terms of her age. Even though she's in great shape, I mean, I can only hope to be in the shape that she is in at her age when I get there. But I can tell you that she took the vaccine, and I don't blame her for it one bit. I don't blame her for that at all. It was a risk it was a calculated risk. And thankfully, you know, she is still here, still kicking my butt with everything else. All right, that's my last article, and honestly, that's my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. So do me a favor. If you like the program, go ahead and head on over to Rumble or YouTube or even Twitch. I mean, I would prefer Rumble, but go ahead and head on over to Rumble and do me a favor. Sign up for an account and subscribe. I mean, I've got 458. I'd like to hit 500 within the first quarter, meaning the first 3 months of this year. We're already halfway through the first month. So head on over there and subscribe. Give me a shout out. Hit me up on social media. Follow me there. And, oh, buddy, you're right. Sorry. I totally skipped over this one. Questions for whiskey. So hold on. I'm going to do that real quick. Let me find, where is that effect? Where is that? There it is. Well, that makes sense. Here we go. Questions for whiskey. All right. So tonight's question for whiskey actually comes from Buddy Weiser. And it's a question that was asked. It had to deal with the Speaker of the House. So we all know the Speaker of the House went to McCarthy. Okay. But for a time there were people that were tossing up things like Donald Trump. And so the question that came in was, if on the off chance that somebody outside of the speakership, outside of the House of Representatives actually got to be speaker, what would happen would they be assigned to a particular state, or what the situation would be there? Now, when you look it up in the Constitution, okay, and you look up, this is under Article 1, which is talking about the House of Representatives and how Congress does all of its things and everything else. But if you look up Article 1, let me see if I can find it real quick here, because where is it? Oh, yeah, here it is. So it's at the very end. It's the last sentence of Section 2. And it basically says that the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other offices and shall have the sole power of impeachment. That is literally it. That's all that's written about it. So essentially what I believe would happen is, on the off chance that somebody outside of the House of Representatives was elected to be speaker, that first of all, they would probably have a House rule made up. They would have to have a House rule made up as to what that person could and couldn't do in terms of voting. I believe that they would not be assigned to a state. They would just be considered the Speaker of the House, and they would have literally no voting power whatsoever. And it would be basically an administerial kind of position, an administrative kind of position, more so than any kind of like a voting member. Now, keep in mind, that has never happened. To my knowledge, it's never happened in history that somebody outside of the House of Representatives was actually voted in as a speaker. But because of that very small little statement there, where all it says is the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker, and there's like no qualifications that follow it, it basically would be that they could pretty much be anybody that the House wanted. As long as the person got the votes, it could be just about anybody, realistically, based off of that constitutional statement there. But that my guess is that they probably wouldn't have, like I said, zero voting power if they were not already an elected representative from a particular state or a particular district, congressional district, that they wouldn't have any voting power other than doing the administrative functions that the speaker does, like bringing bills to and assigning them to committees, and then of course sending them from the House or from the Rules Committee. When it comes out of the Rules Committee, the speaker then goes and sets a date on the calendar for supposedly for it to get debated, although we know that Nancy Pelosi hardly ever did that. She would mostly just send it to a vote where people would have no chance because, according to her, we have to pass the bill in order to find out what's in it. Yeah, she was an absolute horrible speaker. I mean, she did not follow the processes that the House built for itself. But that would be my guess, is that they would not have any kind of voting power. They would basically just be an administrative function for somebody being outside of the House of Representatives. So, but I would imagine that they would probably create their own rules about it because it's definitely not part of the Constitution. All right. And I do want to send out, well, okay, bam. Well, thank you. Thank Z for joining. I mean, that was great. And she is more than welcome to come back. I mean, I would love to have some younger listeners in this too. So yeah. And yes, buddy. Yes, it is just a guess because it's never happened before. I don't think anybody has really considered it, to be honest. From there. All right. And one last thing, I want to give a shout out to Outlaw Dogs for her boys and girls swim teams. They won both of their meets today. Congratulations to them. That is absolutely wonderful. All right. So we will see you next time. That'll be Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here for the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you next time.